When Joanna Carter returns to her childhood town after a devastating fire consumes her family's legacy, she expects closure, but uncovers a darker truth hidden in the ashes. With her estranged brother Tyler by her side, Joanna must unravel the secrets that destroyed their father and threaten to destroy them next. In a town where everyone has something to hide, how far will they go to reclaim what was lost and survive the shadows stalking them? It was past midnight when I finally got the call. The voice on the other end was rushed, trembling. It was my younger brother, Tyler. "Joanna," he whispered, like saying my name too loudly might shatter the fragile walls around him. "You need to come. Now." My heart tightened. What happened? There was a pause, a sharp breath. Dad. He lost it. Again. That was all I needed to hear. I was out of bed, keys in hand, shoes halfway on before I even realized I hadn't said goodbye to my roommate. Marissa appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes. "Joe, where are you going?" "My dad." Tyler called. "It's bad." She nodded, already stepping aside. She'd seen enough. Too much, really, over the years to question it. The drive to the old neighborhood felt like driving into a storm that hadn't passed in years. The streets were quiet, but I could feel the tension like static in the air. The memories I'd buried clawed at my chest as I parked across the street from the house I once called home. Tyler stood on the porch, shoulders hunched, arms wrapped around himself. He was 16, but tonight he looked half that. As I approached, I noticed the purpling bruise forming under his eye. "Oh, Tyler." I reached for him, but he flinched. Not away from me, just from touch, from anyone. He's inside. Drunk. Again. He smashed the TV, said I was stealing from him. I grit my teeth. "Did he hit you?" "Just threw the remote. I didn't duck fast enough." I pulled him into a hug, and this time he didn't resist. He was shaking. I'd promised him, promised myself I'd never let this happen again. But I wasn't living here anymore. I had my own small life now. My apartment, job, and bills. I'd left Tyler behind in a place I swore we'd escape from together. The front door creaked open, and our mother stepped out, her eyes puffy, hair pulled into a tight bun that had frayed at the edges. "Joanna, you shouldn't be here." "Why not? Because I'll see what's going on? Because I might finally report it?" She looked away. "He's your father. He's a drunk, and he's hurting Tyler. Again. He didn't mean it. He never does." "That doesn't make it better." Tyler shifted beside me, clearly torn. He still wanted to believe Mom would do something, that she'd protect him. But we both knew the truth. She'd made her choice years ago, and it wasn't us. I took a deep breath. "I'm taking Tyler for the night. If you want to stop me, go ahead and try." Her face crumpled, but she didn't move. I walked him to my car and didn't look back. We didn't talk much on the drive back. Tyler stared out the window, hands clenched in his lap. I could feel the silence pressing down on him, like a lead blanket. "You hungry?" He shook his head. "I've got those frozen waffles you like, the ones with chocolate chips." He didn't smile, but his voice was soft. "Thanks." When we got back, Marissa was waiting with tea and a heating pad. She took one look at Tyler's face and said nothing, just opened her arms. He hesitated a moment, then stepped into the hug. It was the first safe thing he'd felt all night. We let him sleep in my bed, and I took the couch. I couldn't sleep. I lay there in the dark, thinking about all the nights I'd begged Mom to leave. All the excuses she made. All the apologies Dad never meant. In the morning, I called a friend who worked with family services. I didn't want to put Tyler into the system. I'd take him myself, but I needed to know what our options were. She listened carefully, asked questions, and took notes. Then she said, "If he's willing to testify or if there's a report on file, we might be able to grant you temporary guardianship. But it'll take time." Time. The one thing we never had enough of. A few days later, I dropped Tyler off at school. He was wearing one of Marissa's boyfriend's old hoodies, sleeves too long, but it hid the bruise. "Text me if anything happens, okay?" He nodded. "Thanks, Joe." As he disappeared through the double doors, I sat in the car, debating whether to drive home or do something I'd been putting off. I turned the key and headed to the house. Mom opened the door with a frown. She looked older, like the years had finally started catching up with her. Or maybe they'd caught up long ago and she was just now noticing. Where is he? Still asleep. Hungover. I stepped inside anyway. The living room was a mess. Broken glass, tipped over furniture. I scanned the area and noticed something else. Where's my laptop? The one I left on the bookshelf. She didn't answer right away. Then, with a sigh, I sold it. We needed groceries. I stared at her. You what? That was mine. You had no right. You don't even live here anymore. That doesn't make it yours. She looked away. Guilt, maybe, or shame, or just tired of hearing the truth. And my car? She hesitated. I just borrowed it. For a week? The gas receipts are still in the glove box. Who permitted you? Joanna, please. I shook my head. No, not this time. I'm done. That was the beginning of the end. I filed a police report for the laptop and the unauthorized use of the car. I didn't want to press charges. Not really. But I needed them to know I was serious. When the police showed up, my mother cried. My father yelled. But neither had proof of ownership. My name was on every document. They were warned. Any further incidents, and there would be consequences. I thought it would end there. But it didn't. 3 days later, I got the message. A simple line from a blocked number. You think you've won. You'll regret betraying your family. No signature needed. I checked the local records. My father had been released on bail earlier that morning. My stomach sank. I texted Tyler. Dad's out. Do you know who bailed him? He called me 5 minutes later. Uncle Mark, he came by yesterday, gave Mom an envelope. I heard Dad making calls. Before that, asking for money. Uncle Mark. The man who once made an entire block file noise complaints because of his late-night parties. This wasn't charity. This was loyalty. And now Dad wasn't just free. He was emboldened. Marissa didn't hesitate. Joe, you have to leave. He knows where you live. I bit my lip. I've already installed cameras. That won't stop him. She was right. I packed. Fast. Essentials only. I called Nora, a coworker who once said her place had a spare room. She didn't ask questions, just told me to come. That night, Marissa helped me load the car. We hugged tightly. I'll call the cops. If anything happens, she promised, just stay safe. I looked back at the apartment one last time. This wasn't fleeing. This was surviving. As I drove to Nora's, my phone buzzed again. You can run, but you can't hide forever. Family is forever, Joanna. I didn't reply. I sent a screenshot to the police, filed a second report, and typed each word with calm clarity. I am being threatened by the man who used to be my father. I no longer feel safe. This wasn't over. Not yet. But I wasn't that scared little girl anymore. If he wanted a fight, he was going to get one. The damp chill of early October clung to Joanna's trench coat as she stepped off the train at Maple Hollow Station. A thin mist hung low, curling around the edges of the platform like a living memory refusing to fade. Her heels echoed softly. On the old wooden planks, their sound a discordant reminder of how far she'd come, and how far she hadn't. 8 years. 8 years since she left this ghost town behind. She had boarded that same station platform as a girl, wounded and silent, a girl who refused to look back. Now she returned a woman wrapped in quiet resolve, her success a brittle armor. Maple Hollow hadn't changed. The town clung to nostalgia like a shroud. Old signs hung crooked over shuttered stores, and the bakery still advertised fresh cinnamon rolls with a faded banner that hadn't been fresh in years. Everything was the same, except her. And Tyler. Joanna took a slow breath, her hand tightening on the handle of her modest suitcase. She could still remember the last fight with her father, the way his voice had cracked. Not with grief, but with pride disguised as anger. He had always been like that. Tough, stubborn, broken in ways he never spoke about. She used to believe his silence was a wall meant to punish her. Now she suspected it was a prison of his own making, and Tyler. Her chest tightened. The last photo she'd seen of her younger brother was nearly 6 years old. He couldn't have been more than 15 at the time, staring blankly at the camera, a bruise just faintly visible beneath one eye. Their aunt had sent the photo, trying to guilt Joanna into returning. She hadn't. A silver sedan waited at the curb. Joanna spotted Mrs. Dillard, her father's former secretary, standing stiffly next to it. The older woman gave a tight-lipped smile. "Joanna, I almost didn't recognize you." "That makes two of us," Joanna replied, sliding into the back seat. They drove in silence through winding streets lined with flame-tipped trees. Maple Hollow looked beautiful in the fall, picturesque even, a place that begged to be painted, not lived in. Finally, the house emerged, her childhood home. It stood solemnly at the edge of Crestwood Lane, cloaked in ivy and memory. The white paint had peeled like flaking scars. The porch sagged slightly, but the door, it was the same heavy oak her father had built himself. Solid, imposing. She stepped out slowly, her breath caught in her throat. Tyler stood on the porch. He was taller now, broader in the shoulders but lean, almost too lean. His hands were shoved into the pockets of a hoodie, and his eyes, they were dull, cautious. "Hey," he said, voice low. Joanna swallowed. "Hi, Ty." He gave a sharp nod and stepped aside to let her in. The hallway still smelled faintly of pine, cleaner and motor oil. Her father's boots still sat neatly beside the door. Joanna felt a strange vertigo, as though stepping into this house had also pulled her back through time. "Your room's the same," Tyler said, already heading up the stairs. "Thanks," she said softly. As she reached the landing, she heard the click of his bedroom door closing. The sound felt like a verdict. That night, Joanna lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of wind against the glass was familiar. The silence, too, was the same. Not peaceful, but strained. Down the hall, she could hear the faint rhythm of Tyler's music through his door. It was heavy, angry. The next morning brought no easier peace. Over breakfast, Tyler barely looked at her. His answers were monosyllabic, his posture defensive. She tried to bridge the silence. "Remember the Halloween when you dressed as a robot and terrified Mrs. Cartwright's cat?" she asked, forcing a smile. He didn't look up. "No." "Ty, why? Are you here?" The question struck like ice water. "I came to see you," she said. He laughed bitterly. "Took you long enough." Joanna's hands clenched around her coffee mug. "You think I didn't want to come back?" "I left because I couldn't, because I had to get out, Ty. Dad, he was an alcoholic who screamed at shadows." Tyler cut in. "You think I didn't notice?" She blinked. "You never said anything. Neither did you." Silence fell again. Heavy. Final. She wanted to reach for him, to bridge the years of abandonment and pain, but something held her back. Fear. Guilt. Later that day, she visited their father's grave. It was modest. A weathered stone marked with his name, date of birth, and death. And a quote she hadn't expected. "Forgiveness is the final form of love." Reinhold Niebuhr. Joanna stared at it, heart twisting. Had he chosen that quote? Or had Tyler? When she returned to the house, Tyler was gone. She found him an hour later at the garage, working beneath an old Buick with the radio playing classic rock just loud enough to drown out thought. He didn't look up. "You kept working here?" she asked. "Pays better than therapy?" Joanna crouched beside the car. "He didn't mean to be the way he was, Ty. I think he never healed from Mom." Tyler's face went still. "She died 10 years before he did. And he never stopped blaming himself." Tyler looked at her, then truly looked. "And you? Who do you blame?" Joanna's throat tightened. "Myself." That night, she placed an old photo on the mantel, one of the three of them at the lake. She and Tyler had been soaked and laughing. Their father had a rare, unguarded smile. It was a beginning, but Maple Hollow had never been kind to beginnings. The next morning brought sirens. Joanna woke to the distant wail and the smell of smoke. She rushed outside to see a crowd gathered. Down the block, neighbors whispering, fire trucks parked like sentinels. Tyler wasn't in the house. She ran. The fire was at the old warehouse near the schoolyard. Flames danced in broken windows, painting the dawn sky in oranges and reds. She saw him, Tyler, standing near the yellow tape, ash streaked across his face, talking to a firefighter. She pushed through the crowd. "What happened? Are you okay?" He nodded slowly. "I was walking past. Thought I heard someone inside. Called it in. Was anyone? Just a squatter, I think." He looked shaken. "Same guy Dad used to chase off the garage property." Joanna exhaled, but as she looked at the fire, something cold settled in her gut. This was no accident. And Tyler knew more than he was saying. The flames from the warehouse fire still danced behind Joanna's eyes long after the fire trucks left. She and Tyler walked home in silence. The ash in the air had left his hoodie smeared, with soot and his eyes red-rimmed. Whether from smoke or something deeper, Joanna couldn't tell. Once inside, he peeled off the soiled sweatshirt and tossed it on the floor. His movements were mechanical, practiced, the kind of muscle memory that came not from habit, but from trauma. Joanna lingered near the door. "You didn't sleep last night." Tyler didn't answer right away. "Neither did you." She stepped closer. "Ty, was it just a squatter in there?" He turned sharply. "You think I said it?" Her stomach dropped. "No, I didn't say that. I know the warehouse meant something. It was where Dad kept his old records, right? His journals?" He went still. "You remember that?" She nodded. "Of course I do." Tyler sank into the couch, his voice lower. "The fire started near the back office. The firefighters said it looked like accelerant was used." Joanna's mouth went dry. "So it was arson." He nodded. She sat beside him, eyes on the smoke-stained window. "Who'd want to destroy Dad's records?" Tyler hesitated. "Maybe someone who knew what was in them." Joanna turned to him. "What do you mean?" He stood abruptly and left the room. That afternoon, Joanna walked to the sheriff's office. Sheriff Wayne Tanner was a grizzled man in his 60s, with eyes like iron nails. He hadn't changed since she was a teenager. Same crisp uniform, same scent of pipe tobacco. "Joanna Barnes, I'll be damned," he said when she walked in. "Hello, Sheriff. You're back for good?" "Not sure yet," she replied. "I need to ask about the fire at the warehouse." He leaned back. "We're treating it as suspicious. The forensics team is combing the site. But these old buildings, one good spark and they go up like kindling. I heard accelerant was found." His gaze sharpened. "Where'd you hear that?" Tyler said the firefighters told him. Tanner grunted. "Damn loose-lipped rookies. Well, yeah, something was poured near the office. We won't know what for a few days. But you think someone torched it to hide something?" She hesitated. "Possibly." "You think your dad was into something?" She shook her head. "I don't know. That's what I'm trying to find out." Tanner narrowed his eyes. "Well, you best tread carefully. This town may look sleepy, but it's got sharp teeth." Back at the house, Joanna rummaged through the attic, breathing in dust and memories. Old boxes labeled with her father's precise handwriting sat undisturbed. Receipts 2003-2007, tax docs, inventory, garage. But one box sat open, empty. Tyler stood behind her. "That was full last week," she turned. "You're..." "Sure," he nodded. "Blueprints, invoices, some notebooks. I was reading through them." "Why?" "I was looking for answers. Dad wasn't just a mechanic. He had maps of the town, marked up ones." "Marked how?" "Properties, empty lots, abandoned buildings. I think he was tracking something." Joanna's pulse quickened. "Did you make copies?" He reached into his back pocket and pulled out a folded sheet. "Only this one. I didn't think it mattered." She unfolded it. It was a hand-drawn map of Maple Hollow. Red X's dotted a handful of locations. One was the warehouse. Another was the old mill near the river. They visited the mill at dusk, the KO. Structure had long since collapsed into rot and rust, but Tyler led her behind the ruins to a steel hatch hidden beneath overgrown ivy. It groaned open with effort. Inside was a small bunker-like room. Shelves lined the walls, some holding cracked jars and moldy papers. But in the corner sat a file cabinet. Tyler jimmied it open with a tire iron. Inside were dozens of folders. Names. She recognized townsfolk, business owners, even the mayor. Joanna flipped through one marked B. Cummings, the school superintendent. Inside were photographs, receipts, and typed notes. One page read, "Evidence of embezzlement. Confirms. Payoff to councilman for property deal." She looked at Tyler. Was Dad investigating them? He nodded grimly. I think so. I think he was documenting a web of corruption. Joanna whispered. Then the fire wasn't just about old memories. It was about silencing him. Tyler nodded. And maybe silencing us, too. The early morning fog clung stubbornly to Maple Hollow as Joanna stepped out of the house, her mind tangled in uneasy thoughts. The fire at the warehouse still burned in her memory, a fiery reminder that the past had not yet released its grip. Tyler's silence and guarded glances gnawed at her, but she understood why he kept so much inside. He was carrying the weight of years alone. She wrapped her scarf tighter, the chill biting into her bones. It was time. Time to face everything that had been buried in ash and silence. Joanna found Tyler at the garage again, leaning against the old Buick that was his refuge from the world. His face was streaked with grime, but there was something more, something raw beneath the surface. Ty, she said softly. We need to talk. He looked up, eyes wary. About what? Everything. She took a deep breath, steadying herself. About Dad, about us, about why I left. Tyler hesitated, then nodded. The words were heavy between them, a bridge they'd both been too afraid to cross. He wasn't just angry, Tyler finally said, voice low. He was broken. Mom's death, he never got past that. I think that's why he was so hard on us. Because he was hurting inside. Joanna's throat tightened. I know. I thought leaving was the only way to survive. But maybe I was wrong. Tyler's gaze softened. I missed you. More than I could say. She swallowed the E lump in her throat. I missed you too. I'm sorry I wasn't here. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other, years of pain folding between them like the turning leaves outside. That afternoon, Joanna decided to visit the local library, hoping to uncover more about the recent fire and the squatter Tyler had mentioned. The librarian, Mrs. Hensley, was a kindly woman who had watched the town's slow decay with a heavy heart. Anything new about the warehouse fire? Joanna asked cautiously. Mrs. Hensley nodded, pulling out a local newspaper clipping. Strange, isn't it? Fires don't just happen there. Some folks say the owner was planning to sell the land, but there were rumors. Darker rumors. Joanna's fingers trembled slightly. Rumors about what? Mrs. Hensley lowered her voice. Some say it wasn't an accident, that someone wanted the warehouse gone, cleaned out, to hide something. Joanna's mind raced. Could the fire be connected to her father's old business dealings? Had his past finally caught up with them? That night, Joanna couldn't sleep. The old photo on the mantel stared back at her. Their smiling faces frozen in a moment of happiness long gone. She pulled out an old box from under her bed, filled with letters, journals, and faded photographs. Among the clutter, a worn leather-bound notebook caught her eye. Her father's journal. With trembling hands, she opened it. Page after page revealed a man struggling with loss and regret. There were entries about his failing health, his fears, for Tyler and Joanna, and cryptic notes about a deal gone wrong and someone to trust. Her heart pounded. Was this the key to everything? The next morning, Joanna took the journal to Tyler. Together they read through the entries, piecing fragments of their father's last days. He was trying to protect us, Tyler said quietly. From what I don't know yet, but this deal gone wrong, it sounds dangerous. Joanna nodded, resolve hardening. We need to find out who was involved, and why. Their search led them to old business associates, dusty offices, and whispered warnings. Slowly, a picture emerged of betrayal far worse than a broken family. It was a corporate web of greed and deceit that had engulfed their father. Weeks passed as Joanna and Tyler dug deeper. Tensions rose. Their fragile truce was tested by frustration and fear. One evening, as they returned home, a car slowed beside them. A man in a dark suit stepped out. "Ms. Carter, Mr. Carter," he said, voice smooth but cold. "I represent the interests of the late Mr. Carter's business partners. We'd appreciate your cooperation in settling the estate." Joanna's fists clenched. "We're already settling things, but we're not done yet." The man's smile didn't reach. His eyes, "Be careful. Some secrets are better left buried." In the final confrontation, Joanna and Tyler uncovered financial fraud, betrayal by trusted friends, and the manipulation that had led to their father's downfall. But more than that, they found a way to forgive, not just their father's mistakes, but their own choices. On a clear autumn evening, standing together at their father's grave, they made a silent promise. "We'll do better," Joanna whispered. Tyler nodded. Together. Months later, Maple Hollow began to heal. The warehouse land was turned into a community garden, a place for new beginnings. Joanna stayed not just for Tyler or the town, but for herself, finally ready to write her own story. The past was ashes, but from them, new life could grow.